afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Sean Woolslegel Cybersecurity channel. It is lovely to see you all, and thank you for joining in on this lovely Tuesday afternoon. It's great to be back for another live stream, and I'm so happy to have an audience for today's session. So thanks for joining in. I'm going to go ahead and dig into some networking concepts, but today we're going to start off with a little tea because I'm not much of a coffee drinker. I drink a little bit of coffee here and there, but I'm really just a tea guy. So I'll start the day off with just a little cup of tea here. I know how the podcasters, they drink all these different drinks, so I felt like I got to get in with the whole coffee and tea thing. And we're going to switch things up a little bit today, and I think that moving forward, this is going to kind of be the way that I move ahead with the channel. I'm going to dive into some cybersecurity news to start off the day. So let's switch over to my screen so you all can see what we got going on. All right, so for anybody who's unfamiliar, darkreading.com is an absolutely phenomenal resource for learning about the latest cybersecurity news, figuring out what's going on in the world of cybersecurity, and I can assure you that you're going to find a lot of crazy things on here. So let's start off with the big one, which is the North Korea's Lazarus pulls off biggest crypto heist in history. I talked about this the other day. This is definitely the big news, the big kid on the block right now with cybersecurity. You know, we've got this big crypto heist that took place, and I kind of am wondering what would have happened if they just had better cybersecurity. Maybe they didn't listen to their personnel. Maybe they were missing something. I don't know. I don't know what happened here exactly, but at least we know now who did it, and we can actually point the finger at Lazarus Group and say, you know, hey, we know that you guys are the ones who did it, and we're going to come after you. But poor Bybit. I mean, I would not want to be in their shoes right now. I mean, $1.5 billion is a lot of money to lose. And yeah, this stuff is just getting crazier and crazier. So if you're not in the crypto game, crypto is a really fun thing to get into, especially these days. You know, there's a lot of talks around the United States and what things are going to look like in the next couple of years for cryptocurrency. Never been a better time to get into it. So lots of good stuff here. But the Ethereum crypto was what they grabbed. And yeah, just Lazarus Group coming in for the big steal for $1.5 billion in Ethereum. Wow. I just can't even imagine. So yeah, if you don't have a good cybersecurity program wherever you work, I definitely recommend telling whoever your bosses are, whoever your leadership is, that they should probably get into some better cybersecurity. So let's switch gears a little bit. Let's go over to Bleeping Computer, see what they got. Okay, so not a whole lot over here. This one was interesting. Anthropic's Claude 3.7 Sonnet is here. And yeah, so the game of AI right now is massive. I think that AI is obviously, I mean, most of us live, eat, breathe, sleep AI all the time anymore. I mean, AI is everywhere you look. So with Anthropic Claude 3.7, kind of is a little bit of a challenge to Elon Musk's XAI or Grok. And so, you know, it's going to be interesting to see how these two very advanced models play out against each other, especially with the likes of ChatGPT 4.0 and, you know, how things are going to go there. So, yeah, be on the lookout here for this Sonnet. And, yeah, I'm going to just show, so you see here on my Mac, I have a thing called Warp. I'll get into this a little bit later. I'm not going to show it off today. I'll show it off at another time. But Warp is a really cool tool that makes use of Claude. And whenever you're unsure of a command that you need to type in, basically without having to go out to the web, you can just get on Warp and just type in whatever it is you want to do and speak to it in real language, like just how I'm talking right now, and it'll understand and it'll help you out with understanding those commands. You know, that said, one last thing I want to say about AI before I get on to the next thing. Don't become reliant on AI. I see a lot of people nowadays that are just, AI is a huge crutch, and you can't become too dependent on it. In this field of cybersecurity, we really rely on the ability to have critical thinking and puzzle solving. And if you can't think for yourself, you're not going to succeed in this industry. AI takes a lot of that skill. It's a lot of that skill that's required away from you. AI is a tool just like any other, and if if you get too used to it, it's just going to make you dull, and you won't keep your skills sharp as time moves on. So yeah, that's it. I wanted to say about AI. The one thing I had was, and I guess it's not on here, but maybe it's back here on dark reading. Anyway, until I find it, I'll talk about it. So, oh yeah, here it is. Parallels. If you run Parallels on your Mac, please update. Please update, because there was a 0-day bug that popped up in Parallels. It says it has no fix in sight. So I would say whenever there is a fix that does eventually come out, you definitely want to run the update. I'm sure Parallels is hard at work on that. It's brand new. This just happened, and a lot of users have Parallels. So I would highly recommend that if you are using it, keep an eye out, stay informed, and when that patch does come out, that you update your system. All right. Take a little tea break here for a second. All right. That's delicious. I definitely recommend tea, by the way. Tea is a really good alternative to coffee. I'm a tea drinker, and I just think that tea just tastes better, Like I'm drinking English breakfast, which is really good. And I normally drink Earl Grey. Earl Grey is a really good flavor. But today I'm having the English breakfast, which is pretty comparable. All right, let's dive into TryHackMe. All right, so on to the main point of today's show, which is what is networking. Okay, we're not going to watch the YouTube video. We're going to just dive right in. What is networking? Networks are simply things that are connected together. So a simple network could literally just be like if you have an iPhone and your AirPods, that's a network right there. You have two things that are connected up together, boom, you have a network. You have your phone and you have an Apple Watch, boom, you have a network right there. And then more complex things like, you have an enterprise or a big office space, right? A big company. And then you have all these different computers on there. And then you have all these different printers on there. And that is a network. That's typically what we think of as a network. But I want you to understand that a network can be just as small as that little, your smartwatch and your phone. Like that's a network. So networks can be found in all walks of life: a city's public transportation system, infrastructure such as the national power grid for electricity, meeting and greeting your neighbors, and postal systems for sending letters and parcels. And then in computing, network is the same idea, just for technological devices. So yeah, basically just what I said. So it can be from just 2 devices to billions of devices. So let's talk about this graphic for a quick second. Take a little moment here. In cybersecurity, you're going to get used to these names: Bob, Jim, and Alice. They're going to be your 3 best friends for however long you decide to be in this career field. You're going to see them everywhere you look. They're going to be in networking documentation. They're going to be in cybersecurity documentation. They're going to be anywhere you look for anything technology. Alice, Bob, and Jim are your 3 people that are always referenced, but they could be any name. It doesn't matter, but they're just the common ones. So networks come in all shapes and sizes, and that's something that we will also come to on the discussion throughout this module. Okay, so what is the key term for devices that are connected together? And the answer is network. All right, cool. So now that we know what a network is, what is the internet? All right, chat. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about what is the internet. I mean, I think we all kind of understand what the internet is at the very beginning of it, at like the very top 10,000 foot level. But now that we know what a network is, let's talk about the internet. The internet is one gigantic network that consists of many, many small networks within itself. Using the example from the previous task, let's imagine that Alice made some new friends named Zane and Toby. So they added some new people in here. and she wants to introduce them to Bob and Jim. But Alice is the only person who speaks the same language as Zane and Toby, so Alice will have to be the messenger. So we got to go from Bob and Jim to Alice, and then from Alice, she can say to Zane and Toby what's going on here. Cool. Okay, so because Alice can speak both languages, they can communicate to one another through Alice, forming a new network. All right, so a little bit of history here. The first version of the internet was called the ARPANET, and that was created in the 1960s. And then the U.S. Department of Defense that was their first documented network in action. And then it wasn't until 1989 when the internet became as we know it. And if anybody who grew up in the 90s, you probably remember like the whole thing with like Bill Clinton and You've Got Mail and all that. So there is a lot of history there to dive into. There's a really good book, really good book. I don't have it. At least I don't have it physically, but I have it on my iPad, and it's called Tubes. So I'll link to that in the comments section after this video is over. But Tubes is a really good, if you really want to understand how the internet works, I highly recommend you pick up that book and read it. Tubes is great. All right, so anyway, moving on. So let's relate Alice's network of friends to computing devices. The internet looks like a much larger version of this sort of diagram. So you got the internet here, and then you have network number 1, this could be your house. Network number 3, this could be your neighbor's house. And network number 2, this could be wherever you work. So that could be just, basically, okay, so everything's connected up to the internet. You have your house, you got your neighbor's house, you got your whatever, your employer, right? And this could be anything. You could put it with whatever, right? So as previously stated, the internet is made up of many small networks all joined together, and these small networks are called private networks, where networks connecting these small networks are called public networks. So you got networks on networks on networks. And then you have the internet, and that's why they call it the internet, because it's networks on networks on networks. So private network and a public network. Let's talk about that a little bit. A private network is something that is just, let's say your own house, right? You have, let's say you have some, I don't know, HomePods or Alexa speakers or something like that in your house. Let's say you have a Chromecast, you have your phone, your TV is a smart TV, you might have a smart fridge. All those things exist on your local private network. And then your public network is whatever is getting sent out to the internet and then back down to you. So the public network is the internet. So yeah. So who invented the World Wide Web? Who invented the World Wide Web? So that would be, it was ARPANET, but I don't actually remember this. It was the United States Defense Department. Is that right? Oh, no, Tim Berners-Lee. Okay. So internet was invented by Tim Berners-Lee. So we're learning together, folks. We are learning together. I'm sure I might have heard that at one point, but I have since forgotten it. So thank you, Tim Berners-Lee, for the internet. We really appreciate all that you did, and I wouldn't be talking to you if not for Tim Berners-Lee. So, all right, identifying devices on a network. So, to communicate and maintain order, devices must be both identifying and identifiable on a network. What use is it if you don't know whom you're talking to at the end of the day? Right, I agree. So devices on a network are very similar to us human beings, and that we have our name and we have our fingerprints. Right. Okay. So now we can change our name through deed pool, but we can't, however, change our fingerprints. So yeah, we have the same thing where we have an IP address, which is whatever your router assigns to your whatever your device, right? And then you'll have a public IP address. But on your home network, you have like this one right here, perfect, 192.168.1.1, which would be your router in most cases, or 0.1 for that matter. And then you have, your devices assigned, and then you have your MAC address, which is actually the MAC address is actually associated with your device itself. Like for me, I'm working on a MacBook, so my MacBook has a specific MAC address, and that can't be changed. It can be spoofed, but it can't be changed. Not literally, anyway. So not without doing some crazy stuff, anyway. Okay, so does this want us to do this? I guess so, maybe. Let's just go ahead and scroll on down here. All right. So an IP address. I'm going to spend a couple minutes on this because this is an important topic. So IP addresses can be used as a way of identifying a host on a network for a period of time, where that IP address can then be associated with another device without the IP address changing. So you have octets. Octets are just, you have eight numbers here, 8 numbers here, or actually not numbers, sorry. Let's be more precise. 8 bits, 8 bits, 8 bits, 8 bits. So 8, 16, 24, 32. That makes up your entire IP address. So, and we'll get into that later. There's a lot of math here. I did do one. I did a video a while back on subnetting. If you want to watch that one, definitely recommend it. And it'll teach you about how to subnet. There's a lot of really good videos on that topic, including Professor Messer, and I would definitely recommend learning how these things work. But not to put the cart before the horse, we have this IP right here. Just know right now there are 4 octets. There's 4 series of numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So an IP address is a set of numbers that are divided into 4 octets. The value of each octet will summarize to be the IP address of the device on the network. The number is calculated through a technique known as IP addressing and subnetting. Yes, so that's what I was saying about subnetting. So, but that's for another day. Yeah, I agree, TryHackMe. You're totally right. What's important to understand here is that the IP address can change from device to device, but cannot be active simultaneously more than once within the same network. In other words, what they're trying to say here is that you can't have, 2 devices. Let's say you have 2 MacBooks, like in my case I have a MacBook, right, and you have them both assigned to the same IP address. Well, the router isn't going to know which one's the real one, so you can't do that. It's just not possible. So everybody has their own assigned IP address, right? So a public address is used to identify the device on the internet, whereas a private address is used to identify a device amongst other devices. Take the table and screenshot below as an example. Okay, so this is usually what a routing table looks like, so this is cool. So we got desktop, yada, 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 desktop, yada, yada, yada. Okay, so are these the same? Yeah, they are. Okay, so this is your private address, right? So you got 192.168.1.77, and you notice how I don't say period. I say dot after each one. I say that's the correct way to do it. You say 192.168.1.77, right? And then you have your private address, right? That would be the actual, like when you go to look at your router, that's what you're going to see. And then your public address, this is the thing you don't want to have leaked, because if anybody can leak, if you leak your IP, then you're going to get doxxed. And you don't want that. I mean, I hope nobody doxes anybody, but sadly we live in a world where people do that. And those people are not nice, and I don't like them very much. So definitely don't dox people. 86.157.52.21. And that's your public address, right? So that's what actually is getting sent out to the internet, and then your internet service provider actually assigns that to you. Same thing with this. You have your private and then your public. Okay, so, and then I'm guessing this is the same thing, just with the MAC address, and then, you have your 5 gigahertz network. Right, cool. Okay, so 5 gigahertz network. We don't need to get into that right now, but just know that there are different signals, different radio waves, so to speak, of how things are sent in your house. I don't know if radio waves are right. It's just a different wavelength, right? So you got 5 gigahertz and you have 2.4, and it just depends. So 2.4 technically it stretches further, but 5 gigahertz is more reliable. So we can dive into that later. We'll get there. Anyway, so 2 devices will be able to see, or will be able to use their private IP address to communicate with each other. However, any data sent to the internet from either of these devices will be identified by the same public IP. So the public IP address is given by your ISP, which I said, yeah, cool. So, and this is the kind of the reason why whenever you're on a public Wi-Fi, like if you're at the airport or if you're at a cafe or something, getting yourself a cup of coffee, you want to have a VPN, because a VPN is going to protect that IP address, and it's going to protect all the data that you're doing, up and down and left and right, east to west, north and south, right? All the different traffic that you're doing, you don't want to have that where it's exposed so that anybody can see. It would be very bad. Okay, so as more and more devices become connected, it is becoming increasingly harder to get a public address that is not already in use. And this has to do with IPv4. So, and we're going to get into that here. Cisco, an industrial giant in the world of networking, estimated that there would be approximately 50 billion devices connected by the end of 2021. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if they were right, but hey. So far, we have only discussed one version of the Internet Protocol scheme known as IPv4, which uses a numbering system of 2 to the 32nd power, right? That's what I just showed you right here. So 2 to the 32nd power, right? All right, so, and then we'll get into IPv6. IPv6. Yeah, let's take a second on IPv6. IPv6 is really awesome. You can have 340 trillion plus addresses. So in our lifetime, and probably our kids' lifetime and their kids' lifetime, they won't have to worry about it. Eventually, somebody's going to have to probably worry about it, but not anytime soon. But right now, you have 340 trillion plus addresses, but IPv6 isn't really actively used. So it's not like a lot of places just even completely turn it off. So I wouldn't worry about like getting super familiar with IPv6 unless you're going to be like a networking expert. If you're going to do that, then definitely learn the ropes on IPv6 and get good at it. But really, the only thing you have to know is IPv4. IPv4 is going to be your bread and butter when it comes to knowing networking. So you have to know these. You have to know things like this: 86.157.52.21, right? And we'll dive into like the differences, and there's different classes of IP addresses. It gets complex. It gets really complex, but we'll get there. We'll work our way to it. Again, I had a video on this a while back. Feel free to watch it. I'll link it in the comments section as well. I'll talk about that as well. All right, MAC addresses. Yeah, it's important, but IP addresses are kind of debatably more important, right? Especially there's this thing where people do this thing where they take and do like MAC address filtering on a network, and just to basically filter out devices. Listen, here's my 2 cents on that. MAC address filtering is a waste of time in 2025 because it's very easy to spoof MAC addresses. You shouldn't use MAC address filtering for your security of your network. If you're doing that right now this year, please stop and figure out something else. Because MAC address filtering is not a solid way anymore to separate out your traffic. But basically, we can actually just sum this up into this graphic right here, which is your first 3 right here are your vendor who built the network interface, okay? So, and they're separated by colons, right? And this is called a hexadecimal number. And then you have your unique address of the network interface. So this could be like Apple, and then this would be the specific make of yours, right? So you'd have, like, let's say this was a car. I mean, I'm kind of getting a little bit, what do you call it? Abstract. But like, let's say this was like a Toyota, right? And then this would be the Tundra, Toyota Tundra, right? But it's the unique address of the network interface. So it'd be like the Toyota Tundra plus your license plate. Okay. So this should be like more specific. But anyway, this is useful if you are actually legitimately taking a look at MACs. Okay, so it even says here, however, an interesting thing for MAC address is that they can be spoofed in a process known as spoofing. The spoofing occurs when a networked device pretends to identify as another using its MAC address. When this occurs, it can often break poorly implemented security designs that assume that devices talking on a network are trustworthy. Take the following scenario. A firewall is configured to allow any communication going to and from the MAC address of the administrator. If a device were to pretend or spoof this MAC address, the firewall would now think it is receiving communications from the administrator when it isn't. So, yeah, essentially exactly right. So if you're spoofing a MAC address, you can totally just pretend you're basically that other person. That's why MAC spoofing is just, it's easy to do, and it's not a good thing to use as your, it's not a good thing to just, use as your security. So anyway, moving on here, we have public places such as cafes, coffee shops, and hotels alike often use MAC addresses. MAC address controls when using their guest or public Wi-Fi. This configuration could use better services. Okay, so the interactive lab attached to this task has been made to replicate this scenario. So I think that's pretty much what it wants us to do. So what does the term IP stand for? The term IP stands for Internet Protocol. All right, and then what is each section of an IP address called? It is called an octet. I guess it didn't like that. There we go. All right, how many sections in digits does an IPv4 address have? It has 8. Oh, no. How many sections does it have? It has 4 sections. Yeah, so 8 bits. That's what I meant. 8 bits, 4 sections. Okay. What does the term MAC stand for? Media Access Control. And then deploy the interactive lab using the View Site button and spoof your MAC address to access the site. Let's see what we get. All right, so let's spoof the MAC address. I guess it wants us to do this. 00 12 32 2F 33 39. All right. Now it thinks that we're that. We think Bob, the router thinks that, or the firewall for that matter, thinks that Bob and Alice are the same thing. So that's the reason why we got that. THM you got on TryHackMe. Submit. Cool. All right. So, and we're going to dig into ping here. All right, ping. Ping is super useful. This is going to be one of the most essential tools. A lot of people already know it, even if they're not in networking. Maybe somebody taught it to them when they were like a kid or something. Especially if you play video games, because if you're just trying to troubleshoot your network to see if your games are working, ping is super, super essential for figuring these types of things out. All right, tea time. Take a little quick second here. All right. Ping is one of the most fundamental networking tools available to us. Ping uses ICMP, one of your first protocols. All right, cool. Internet Control Message Protocol, which is ping, right? To determine the performance of a connection between devices, for example, if the connection exists or is reliable. So essentially, just know this. Ping is basically, if I were to take and send, if I were to go knock on somebody's door, like in real life, right? Go knock on their door and I say, hello, are you home? Hello, knock, knock, knock. Are you home there? And then, waiting until they answer. And then when they answer, okay, I know they're home, right? But then if I don't get that response, then I know they're not home. It's the same thing, just essentially with the internet, right? So let's read on here. You can ping whatever. You could ping google.com if you want to. You don't have to type out this IP address, although I highly recommend if you're just getting started, you should type out the IP address. You can ping like 8.8.8.8. That is Google. There's other ones too you can do. 1.1.1.1 is, let's figure it out. I can't remember what 1.1 is. That is Cloudflare's. Cloudflare. Okay, cool. Anyway. Yeah, so Cloudflare. All right. We'll get to that other tab here in a second. All right, so anyway, you want to ping your IP address, whatever it is you're trying to find. And yeah, see, they even have 8.8.8. Okay. And I guess that's what it wants us to ping, which is perfect because that's Google. 8.8.8.8, and then ping it. And so now it'll start to go through. This is what you should expect to see. And so we got our flag. Normally in real life, you're not going to get a flag, obviously. This is just because it's a game. The protocol that ping uses is ICMP. And then the syntax to ping 10.10 would be ping 10.10.10.10. Pretty easy, pretty straightforward. Easy stuff. But I just put this out here too. Even things like this, if you forget, because there's so many things to know in cybersecurity, if you forget things, you can Google them. You can come back and Google them, right? Like during an interview, probably not. You probably should know these things for an interview. And also like If you're working on a certification, like, you need to know these things. But there's a million things to learn in this field, so it's okay to forget things every once in a while and have to come back and relearn it. It happens to everybody, trust me. You won't be alone, and don't get imposter syndrome if you start to feel that way. Like, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting all these things that I learned so long ago. Like, it happens to every single person in this field, I promise you. You will find that if you just take a deep breath and go ahead and Google whatever it is you need to Google, it'll come back to you. It's like riding a bike. It'll just come back. All right. And tomorrow we will be doing this intro to LAN room, but not today. We will do intro to LAN tomorrow. I'm going to close out a TryHackMe. We're done with that for the day. Let's talk about some networking certifications that are worth your time. So, networking certs that are worth your time. First one is Network Plus. Now, CompTIA is an awesome, extraordinary organization. And I have seen it take people, personally, in their career from knowing absolutely nothing in cybersecurity to getting a job and then moving their way up in cybersecurity. So I would highly recommend CompTIA as a good starting place. Now, these certifications you have here, this is an A+. Now, they've added a bunch, right? They've added a ton. They used to only be like A+, and then Net+, and then Security+. There's a lot more now. I will tell you this. A+, Network+, and Security+ are 3 really good ones. A+ is going to teach you the things you need to know about just computers and how they work. Network+ is going to teach you everything you need to know about how a network works. If there's one thing you need to know in cybersecurity, it's how a network works. People just dive right into the complex subjects in cybersecurity and they skip over the networking stuff, and that's not a good idea. Networking is super important to learn, and you need to know it. You can even do like Linux Plus as well. I don't think this existed years ago whenever I started looking into this stuff, but Security Plus and Network Plus. So this is the Network Plus page, and you can dig into it. Their exams aren't too expensive, I don't think. I can't remember how much they cost off the top of my head, and I don't see anything on their website just right on the front page or anything. But yeah, anyway, definitely recommend starting here if you are new to networking and you want to get good at it. The next one is Palo Alto. So Palo Alto Network Certified Networking Security Engineer. This is a little bit more advanced, complex. So after you have Network Plus and your Security Plus maybe, and you want to do a third one, maybe you just want to really look good on your resume, good one to get. I don't have it myself, but Palo Alto Networks is a massive, massive disruptor in the networking space right now. They're giving Cisco a massive run for their money right now. Like, Cisco is the biggest dog in the room when it comes to networking. And I can tell you that from my own personal experience over the last, I want to say like 10 years, I have seen Palo Alto just completely disrupt what Cisco has started and has done. They are definitely a force to be reckoned with. So, definitely worth your time. Definitely worth taking a look at the Palo Alto Network Certified Network Security Engineer, or PCNSE, again with the acronyms. We are famous for that in cybersecurity. So the PCNSE. The next one would be, and now this is kind of like one of these numbers here. You can kind of like decide for yourself one way or the other. CCNA. This is a good alternative to the Network Plus. You can do either one. They're very comparable. Just really pick whichever one you want. You can see this is made by Cisco, so a lot of people who are in leadership recognize this as an industry standard certification. Having your CCNA is a really big deal. It is also really applicable to security in general, not just networking. So I would definitely recommend doing your CCNA. I actually have 2 books here that are really good. So you got this one right here, which is the CCNA 200 301, if you can see that. And that is the official cert guide, volume 1. And it comes in 2 volumes. That is made by Wendell Odom. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, Wendell, but this is it right here. And it has this is basically These two books right here are like the Bible of networking. Like they have like everything that you want to know about how to network. Definitely recommend picking those up, even if it's just to have as a reference, even if you don't plan on taking the exam. I don't have my CCNA. I have these books because they have a ton of good content in them. Highly recommend it. The next one is the CCNP, which is the Cisco Certified Network Professional, and this is more of a security role. Don't start here. This is not a starter exam. However, once you have your CCNA and you want to move on to the next one, just like with CompTIA and the Network Plus, this is the right transition to get into the CCNP, assuming you go for the CCNA. Now, kind of getting off topic a little bit, but AWS, this is really useful. I want to talk about this because this is specifically where my kind of interests lie and where I like to spend my time. So foundational, you have your cloud practitioner. This is where I would start. Learn this. You don't have to take the exam, but learn this. Learn what it is. Now, where you actually do want to take the exam after you learn your cloud practitioner and you got your feet wet, so to speak, then you can move on to one of these. This one right here is the big gun right here, the Solutions Architect Associate. This guy is so worth your time. It made a huge difference in my own career. Highly recommend you learn it. Solutions Architect is phenomenal. You can also take and learn things like data engineer or sysops administration. You take a look, decide what's best for you, right? And then from there, you have the Solutions Architect Professional and the DevOps Engineer. And then you have your Advanced Networking Specialty and Security Specialty. So this is actually the one that I'm working on right now, Security Specialty, and then you have Advanced Networking. If you want to be a network specialist, if you spend a lot of time doing networking and you find that you absolutely love it, it's a thrill ride for you, definitely get in here and do the Advanced Networking Specialty. That's what I wanted to get to on the AWS side of things. I think it's worth your time. I think any of these AWS certs are worth your time. The only thing I wouldn't buy personally is this, because my humble opinion is the cloud practitioner certification is like, it's great to have the information, but as far as like on a resume, it's not going to hold a lot of weight. This holds a lot more weight than this does. Definitely much more worth your time. Okay. And the next one is the Azure Fundamentals from Microsoft. Definitely learn this one. Definitely has a lot to do with Azure. It's the exact same thing as AWS, just more so. This one is actually worth your time. So this is what they have as like a 1-star certification, and you can see here it's actually a beginner one. I would say definitely take this exam over taking this if you're going to take and focus more on Microsoft. And then once you have that under your belt, then you can go ahead and move on to the Azure Security Engineer Associate, right? Which you can see here, it's intermediate, security related. So all these things kind of go together, and it's funny because we're talking about networking, and it all kind of goes together. But I would definitely recommend that if you are just getting started in cybersecurity, you get a good understanding of what networking is, and I would just say, follow along with me over the next couple of days because we're going to be diving into networking, and it's going to be good. It's going to be a fun ride. We're going to have a lot of good times with it. It's going to be crazy at times as well, because networking is sometimes, it'll make you want to rip your hair out and it'll be crazy, but at the same time, it's a blast. Definitely recommend it. But that's all for today's show. Yeah, if you have a cup of coffee or if you have a cup of tea, cheers to you. Thanks for joining me on this one. It's been a real fun time, and thanks to everybody who watches this later on once it's recorded and up on YouTube and Rumble and X. Really appreciate it, and I hope you all have a great day, a great Tuesday, and I will see you tomorrow at 2 o'clock. See you later.